Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Alex, and I'm here with Brian, our lead Adobe specialist, and Valentin, our graphic designer, who I'm very excited to have here with us today. We are going to be looking at using Adobe Illustrator to design a logo, and Valentin, who's an industry professional, is going to talk to us about the process of planning one a little bit, of designing it, and kind of sending it to be able to save and print and put online. So as the final reminder, download those asset files so you can follow along. If you need help installing fonts or anything, let us know in the chat and we'll help you out. As we're going along, please feel free to ask questions. We love questions. That's what we're here to do, is to help you. And with that being said, I'm going to let our professional take over. So once again, thanks for being here.
So I'm going to share my screen just to make sure I'm going to write. Can you all see this screen? Yes, you can, right? Can you see my cursor moving? Yes? No? Yes, good. All right, well, good morning. My name is Valentin. As Alex was saying, I've been a professional visual designer for about 20 years, give or take. I spent most of my professional career in the advertising private sector. We did a lot of regional and like some national and international campaigns, and I've been in higher education since 2013. And today we're here to design a logo because it's not really about me. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do and what I've done before. And this is really cool. Like logos is something that I spend a lot of time doing in the advertising industry, and it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of misconceptions about logos and a lot of things that even though this is not a really long session, like we can go over a lot of like the most important things about a logo and what you need to create a good logo and how to go about it and all that. So basically a logo is like the original concept of a logo is logo type, right? Like logo type means logo, which is an icon or an image, and type, which is typography. And they normally start like that because I mean, it doesn't matter if it's like a huge corporation, a regular business, a small mom and pop shop, or even an individual that has a really tiny business. Like the logo is what's going to represent you, right? Like logo is like the simplest form of visual design. Like a logo is basically going to represent everything you do. And to be able to distill that to something that simple, like it looks very easy. A lot of people assume it's really easy, but it's not. And it requires like a process and then an execution. And then those logos also evolve. And that's why like now people normally just call them logos, because like now you see like Apple or NBC and you just see an icon, right? But they used to have type one along with it. And once they start evolving and being recognized, like sometimes the wording can come off and it's not as necessary because now you see the Apple and you know that's Apple, right? Or what it used to be Macintosh. And like NBC the same, now you see the little peacock and now you know is like the national broadcasting company and all that. So little things like that. Also, sometimes the icon is what goes away and the typography stays in cases like FedEx, right? And the little arrow that comes within like the little letters that put it together. So logos are super cool. It's always been a passion of mine. It's super fun. There's a really interesting process. Like I always do a lot of brainstorming, a lot of research. I always try to find connections between the client, what they do, and how I can visually tell their story in the best way possible. I've worked on $500 logos. I've also worked on 50,000 plus logos, and they all have the same process. To be honest with you, is the same process. Like it doesn't really change that much. What changes is like the client's budget, right? Like if it's a huge corporation, they feel like, I guess they have to pay more. I don't know, understand why, but it's kind of how it works. But the process is exactly the same. Something I wanted to say, and and this is kind of like more of a pet peeve of mine. Like, don't ever call a designer and ask him like, hey, I need help. Can you make me a really quick 2-hour logo? It's really hard. Like logos are a little more complex than they seem. Today we're gonna try to make a fun, kind of like simple to make like logo, but and we'll just go from there. Before I move on from that, I know some of you are not in Tucson, right? But for those that are in Tucson, if you drive up and down Speedway between Campbell and Euclid, all the banners from the college like tell you the story of the Block A, like the Block A logo from the university and the evolution of that logo. And it's super cool. Like I walked it, I biked it, and it's really interesting to see it because sometimes like the weight of the font, like the stroke of the font, the color of the font, the shape of the font, like when you go from, I studied typography for almost 2 years. And I mean, you can basically tell a story just with type without having to have an actual icon too as well. So the university's logo is one of those logos that it's a really strong logo and it's just a letter technically that has graphic elements within the same shape of the letter, which I find it super cool and interesting. But that's basically what I had to cover before we start. Do you guys all have the file, that the downloaded file and all that? Alex, are they gonna follow us or we just go through and this is recorded and they go back?
We recommend they try to follow along. So
Yeah,
just give
sounds good.
them a follow along pace,
Sounds good.
and they can ask questions. But yeah, it'll be recorded if they miss anything huge.
Perfect. That works. So for those that haven't installed the font, all you need to do is double click on the font. If you're on a Mac, it's going to say install font. I'm on a Mac. If you're on a PC, just right click it. And I think it's install font, right, Alex? I'm almost positive on that one. And
I believe so.
then,
Maybe someone can
yeah,
confirm.
I think you right click and it says install font, and that's how you do it on a PC. It's an open type font, so you should not have any problem installing it. And once you have that, please double click or open the Adobe Illustrator file, which is the .ai file, which is called Cupcake Berry logo. And if you're all there, we can start. All right. Something that Adobe's, basically all the Adobe apps are really good at, they allow you to like change the way you set up your menu, like the preferences and all that. I have mine set up in a really different way. Like I work with basically 3 monitors, so all my menus are in one screen. Today, I'm gonna work with a single screen menu so you guys can see everything, but you can set up a different menu and you see like all my menus like pull off the screen. So you can set your own, call it with your name, and then when somebody else uses the computer, it can reset back to like the default or whatever you feel more comfortable with. So just so you know, right now I'm going with a single screen. That's why like all the menus will be like collapsing and popping out once I click on them. So I don't know how many of you are like very familiar with Illustrator or what level of like your skill level is with Illustrator, but we're just gonna go over some of the basic tools that we'll be using. Something cool about Illustrator as well is that when you hover over the tools, it tells you the name and the shortcut for the tool. So we'll be using the selection tool, which is this one on the upper right corner. And I normally, when I think of this tool, I think of the letter V, and then the direct selection tool, which is the letter A. And then the pen tool we'll be using for a little bit, which is also the letter P. When you see that little triangle underneath the icon, that means that there's other options to choose from. I think, right now. We'll be using this guy, which is all the shapes. We'll be using rectangles, squares. We'll be using the ellipse tools, which is the letter M and the letter L, which I think is on the Spark page. And at some point, I think I might show you like If you click on this guy, it basically allows you to change the size of your artboard and all that. So my artboard right now is 10 by 7. I have it in inches. Sometimes I work in pixels, depends what I'm working for. Like if it's gonna be for print and other stuff, or in general, like I normally work in inches. Right now I do mostly digital design, so I work basically in pixels. And that's about that. I don't need this board anymore, so I'm gonna delete it. So I'm gonna go to the second board. This is like something really basic about like typography and design. Like this is what we call the X height. The X height is like the value of what's going to be like the size of your font, right? Like as you can see, the letter E like sits within the X height. And then we have ascending letters like the D, the T. In some cases, the T might come all the way up. In some cases, they go over. And then we have descending letters. We have so many font type styles right now that it changes a lot. Like it's very like, it varies a lot. The same as the kerning. The kerning is the spacing between the letters. So like, just because you type something, let me add a couple more letters. Maybe an S and I. So sometimes like the space between them, even when you type it, just because you type it doesn't mean that when you're designing a logo, sometimes you have to go in and adjust the space. If you see like between the D and the E, the space is not the same as between the E and the T. And that's because how the letters are programmed, right? So sometimes you just have to adjust that. Right now I'm adjusting it with like the keyboard because I know the commands. But if you go to character and then go paragraph, another character here. For example, here, this is the kerning. So if I put the kerning back to 0, the E goes back. So if you go into the negatives, the kerning is going to close. The letters come close together. If you go into the positive numbers, like let's say 100, the letters are going to pop open. You see that problem more when you have like an O and then the letter I. That space is going to be really off. W's also, because sometimes the W's pop open. But like I said, it all depends on the font and the style that you're using. It could be a cursive, it could be sans serif and serif. We're not gonna go over fonts. I just wanted to give you like something really like simple about like the basics of typography. So when you design a logo, is something to consider. Like you're not gonna be just typing the letters the way the font gives it to you. You need to pay attention at that spacing. I think that font that we're going to use, there's only one adjustment we'll have to make. It's actually pretty accurate in so many ways. Are there any questions so far? Okay. All right, so now we'll start. This is basically my canvas. If you want to turn the guides off, just go to view and then click hide guides. It's also on a Mac, is command semicolon. I use mostly commands, but I'll try to tell you where the option in the menu is. I set these guidelines this morning because I know what I'm going to be doing. But to set guidelines, you basically either pull them from this, before that, you need to go view rulers, which is command R. So if you don't have that on, you're not going to see those rulers on the top and the bottom of the canvas. So command R or view, show rulers. So now once you have that, you can pull like a new guide if you need to, or you can pull the guide from here. Also, once you have the guides set, the guides lock. So if you want to go back and move your guides because you don't like them where they're at, just go to guides, unlock guides, and then you can grab any guide and move them if needed. So for right now, I'm gonna lock mine. Feel free to start from scratch. There's a JPEG that came with the package that we provided you with. And this is basically kind of like me going over the concept of Alex and I talk about like what we could do, and I was like, well, let's make something kind of fun, and they can be colorful, and it might like allow you to play with shapes and all that. Logos can also be like very like font driven, so I wanted to kind of like stay away from that and make it a little more interactive in ways, like also like a little more pleasing to the eye. But like when you do corporate logos, like normally a lot of this is not going to happen. So I kind of like did a quick sketch, and your sketches don't have to be really good. Like you don't have to be an illustrator or anything like that. Like don't ever like, a lot of my sketches are really like, I do a lot of like 3-second sketches because I just want to see where things would sit. I normally do a bunch of sketches. I first do a lot of brainstorming. I do a lot of research, then brainstorming or associations, all that. And then once I have a concept in my head, when I get to Illustrator, I already know like basically like 80% what I'm doing. That's something I wanted to mention. There's a huge difference between design and using the application. A lot of people assume that because you know how to use Illustrator, you can design, and that's not accurate. Design happens in here. Like you can do it in paper, you can do it in a bunch of different apps. All these applications, Adobe applications, Procreate, whatever you might use, is just the tool that will allow you to create what's in your head. My first art director, I remember, like if it was 2 days ago, told me, design happens within you. Don't let the computer be the limit of what you can do. Make the computer do whatever you want. And I totally agree with that. And when I have my students working with me, I always tell them that, like, if you have an idea, make it happen, find a way to make it happen. The same here. When I get to the computer, like I normally know at least 75% what I want to do, how it's going to sort of look structurally. Like it doesn't always stay like that. It changes a lot sometimes. But my foundation's always there. Like I never go like 60% away from where I started on paper. I always start on paper, even if it's this quick. This took me 30 seconds to do, but so I figured we would do something with like a strawberry and then the bottom of a cupcake. And then I figured like the color could be tan, red, and green. And then I kind of like drew this kind of like playful type. Then I started looking for types. I found one that was really close. I actually found a bunch, but I figured hunters, as you can see, was my third option, but it was the closest. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go with that one. Sometimes I see people that start direct on the computer, and that's fine as well. But what happens, even to me, that I've been doing this for a long time, when I start on the computer, I limit myself to what the fonts to the fonts the computer shows me at the moment. And when I start the other way with the other process, I know where I want to go, and I go and find the font that I want. And if I don't find it, I draw it. So that's another thing that is also possible, but it's also a little more complex when you go that route. But cool, so I have the font, the sketch here. I'm gonna turn my guides back on. So actually, let me delete that. I'm just gonna clear the guides so you can see. So to lock an object, I'm just gonna lock it. You just go to object, selection, or you can do command 2. So the cool thing about that is that no matter what I do, I won't be able to move it. So now what I do is I'm gonna start putting some guides just to give me an idea of, as you can see, my illustration is not very proportionate. Like it's like kind of like heavy on the right side, but that's okay, it doesn't really matter. So now we're going to start using the shapes. So this is the rectangle tool, or the letter M. So if I hit the letter M, I get this little square. If I hold shift, it'll make a perfect square. If I don't, it'll allow you to make whichever shape you want. More like a rectangle, or more like a free rectangle instead of a perfect square. So here I'm just gonna make this little box, because we're gonna need 2 boxes. One box for the top, and I'm gonna need 1 box for the bottom. In this case, I'm gonna make the stroke. Your Illustrator file should be loaded with these 3 colors, which are the colors that I picked. Normally by default, there are a bunch of colors. Also, if you want to select a different color, you can always just click here, say okay, and then add it to your swatches. For right now, I'm just going to use, This is also like the solid, the fill and the stroke. So if I have this selected and I go to swatches, select red, is gonna do the fill. If I have the stroke selected, when I do that, which you can also see it here or selected here, it's gonna do the stroke. Also another way to flip those two, you can do the letter X. So if I do the X, it's gonna show me the fill right now. If I do X again, it's gonna swap them. It's gonna put the stroke on top. And to delete the fill, like you can do the question mark on your keyboard. So again, I'm just gonna add the stroke. And then this is gonna be my top box. So I'm gonna put it right here. You can do two things right here. I'm gonna turn the guides off so you can see it. You can copy and paste in place, which is gonna give me a second box. Or, which it's the way I do it, you can select the object, whole option, click and drag, and this is gonna make a second item. I normally do that. I feel it's quicker. Like it saves me a click, but also this one, I'm gonna make it, it doesn't matter if they're the same size or not. We're gonna adjust that anyways. So this one, I'm gonna make it green just so I can see the difference between them. At this point, I kind of know like I'm not gonna need the sketch that much until but I'm gonna leave it just so you guys can see it. So now I'm gonna start adding a few more guides. Something that's really important right now for me is I need to know where the center of all this is. So I'm gonna put another guide right here. And then I'm gonna have to make two more boxes. I continue to use the same boxes because they're all center, even though you can align and center them, and I'll show you how to do that. This guy is more like for a guide because I want to see like how far I need to go with this guy. And if you select this object and this object, be right back. I don't know what's going on. If you select both objects and go to align, if you hover over, this would like align them to the left, to the center, to the right, to the top, center, medium. So in this case, I want them to be center. I can just use the guide for some reason. So this little box at the bottom is just a guide for me to see like how much I need to come in for the box, because I'm gonna distort these boxes a little bit. Like the bottom one is gonna go in, and the upper one is gonna go out a bit. So I'm gonna turn the guides off. If you click the direct selection tool, now another thing that is good to know, if you go Command Y or View Outline, allows you to see just your boxes and your items. Because also when you have a stroke, the stroke changes, right? Like the stroke can be from the middle to both sides. Like if you have a 1-point stroke, it's going to be from the middle of this line, 0.5 this way, 0.5 that way. But you can also tell it to just go from the middle, 1 point this way or 1 point that way. But that's a whole different ball game right now. We're not worried about that. So I'm gonna put a couple more guides for this guy here and here. I have the guides off, that's why you don't see them. So if I hit that, then you'll see them. And then I'm gonna need a bigger one. Let me see. I'm just gonna make another box. Then I'm gonna hold Command Option Shift. And then this is gonna go a little bigger. And this is gonna be my guide for the outside for right now. I don't know if I'm gonna go out a little more, but so now with the selection tool, the difference when I select this guy. One second, let me unlock this. So let me try something because he's not letting me select. Oh. Sorry, that was my dog. And so it's all right. So when you select an object, you get these options to like curve the object if you want to. If you want to select, because we're going to be doing this, that's why I'm mentioning that. If you just want to do this corner, just click on this option and then it'll do just one corner. If you want to do them all together, like when you select them all, you automatically do them all together. But first, I need to change with the direct selection tool. I turn my guides back on. I'm going to bring this corner to here and this corner to here. So when I click here, I just hold Shift. So it brings the line straight. Click on this one and bring this line straight. And as you can see, it still shows me, like if I click on this one again, it's going to show me those dots. Those dots will allow me to make the corners rounded. So I just drag the thing up. And that's sort of kind of like where I want that bottom to be as for right now. So now I think I'm gonna need this on this line. I'm gonna need this guy to be a little farther out. So I'm gonna make this guy, I'm gonna Command Option Shift. I'm gonna make it a little bigger and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna put the guy right here. Here. Then again, we go back to the direct selection tool, select this corner, turn the guides on, open it. Might be actually less, it might be around here. But you can kind of see where the line is at. Open. And now that we have these two guys, like we're gonna make them rounded just a little bit for right now. Which actually a lot for right now. And then we'll do like a little different trick with this. We'll come back to this. So right now, if you're at this point, like we're good. So we have like the two main elements, the top of the strawberry in a way, and the bottom of the cupcake. And again, like those two boxes were just simply like guides for me. You can move them, delete them.
Hey, Valentin,
Yes.
do you think you could demonstrate it one more time? A few people asked how to round the corners like that.
Yes,
so
absolutely. Like on
go
the
ahead.
top, would that work?
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm gonna show you, let me pull this guy out. Sometimes it's easier. When every time you have a box and you select it, you're gonna see these four little dots. When you just pull the dots towards the center. And the more the dots come to the center, like the more rounded, excuse me, the corners become, right?
Perfect. Can you actually also show the direct selection tool and how you tapered the rectangle in? I think it was also that question.
And then if you just do one corner, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And then for example, and that's why, yeah. So with the selection tool, it's gonna do them all. And then if you just want to do one, you click on the direct selection tool, and then it's just going to show you that dot, and then you just do that one. If I wanted to do the other one, let's say I wanted to do this one and the upper right corner and bottom right corner, I just hold Shift and click. So click with the direct selection tool, and then I'm going to click the bottom right, holding Shift. then it's gonna select that second one, and then I'll be able to do those two. So it allows you to create like rounded shapes and all that. Would that work?
I believe so. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Cool.
also, what about angling in the rectangle?
Okay. It's basically, it's a really similar concept. So like you have a box, and then again, if you have a box, if you hold shift, it's gonna be increase its size proportionately. If you're not holding shift, it's like a free transform. And then with the direct selection tool, like you click in this corner, and I'm just gonna move that corner. If you see, I'm not holding shift, so it doesn't like go straight. But if I click on this dot, on this anchor point, and I hold shift and I start bringing it in, it's gonna stay on both axes, right? Like it's gonna change the angle of the Y axis, and it's gonna sit straight on the X axis. So then I can do it to this one, and we come in. That's that. So the difference between clicking with the direct selection tool and not holding shift. And then if I hold shift, I can just angle the rectangle or the shape. I mean, does that make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now, like, since I need this kind of like curvature here, I'm gonna do what we just did. I'm gonna use the direct selection tool, which is the letter A in your command in your keyboard. And I'm gonna select that one. And then I'm gonna hold shift, click on the second one, and I see those two dots. Since I hold shift, once I hold shift and I click on both, I can let go of shift. And then I just can grab either one. I can pull from this one or I can pull from that one, and it'll do it. And then this is not exactly like the way I want it, but it's really, really, really close. And then I kind of need like some type of round shape on the bottom one as well. So I'm going to click with the direct selection tool on the object. So that activates the object. And then I click on this corner, this anchor point, and then this anchor point. And then I'm going to do something similar. Maybe somewhere there. We'll go back to this, like right now, like I want to show you something because I want to show you how to use the pen tool, which is something I most likely I would do a lot of this thing with the pen tool because I'm really like comfortable like drawing with it. But this is also like a way to be more accurate because when you do this and you're holding shift and you're using shapes like geo shapes, everything will stay like closer like to the right angles, right? Like when you draw it by hand, as you're gonna see, I'm gonna draw the little leaves on top of the strawberry by hand. It can be like, if you're not really good at drawing, your lines can be a little crooked. So let's actually do the circles for this thing. Right now I'm gonna use just to make it easier on most of you. Let me see if this would work. I wonder if this might be. I'm just gonna use these guys as guides as well. So I can create this little kind of curvature here. As you can see, is like you just use the shapes that you're giving. I'm just gonna hold up. Okay, I just go back to the selection tool, click on it, hold option, click and drag, and I'm just gonna put it right here. I'm just using that as reference because I want to see how I can draw a curvature that does this. So now I'm gonna hold shift again, click on it, hold option, and then drag and make a third shape. I'm gonna change the color of this one because I want to see it. My swatch is red. And then I'm gonna start skew. Okay. The same as with when you make a, before I because this might not make sense if I just do it like that. If I select the ellipse tool, it's gonna make a circle or an oval, right? If I just start doing it without holding shift, it's gonna do the same as it does with the square and the rectangle. If you hold shift, it makes a perfect circle. So once you've made it, like this one, right? And you click on it, if you want to change its size and you want it to stay as a perfect circle, you just hold shift. But in this case, I don't. So you can move it from the corners to get the shape you want. So I'm gonna find an angle in here. And turn the guides on, so I'm kind of center. That allows these shapes and this to connect in a way. So you have to do less drawing, and it'll make sense once we get there. Look, just bear with me. So now I'm seeing this, and then this might not be there yet. I'll make it black instead. Turn the guides off. And you can do Command Y to see your wireframes. Let's see. The reason it's important to see your wireframes, go to view and see, is because when you have strokes and solids, sometimes like one looks thicker than the other, like here, but it's because of, like I can make that stroke 20 point and it's gonna look super thick. So now I know it's kind of sort of close. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna delete this guy, I'm gonna delete that guy. And I think this will give me the shape that I want, or be really close to it. So now we are on stroke. If I click on this little arrow right here, or here on swatches here, it's gonna flip from stroke to fill. And as you can see, since I have this other shape on top, you can see that it's creating that kind of like curvature that I wanted. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Pathfinder, and I have all these shape modes. So think of it as a cookie cutter. I'm gonna use the black shape to cut the red shape. If I move it, that line is basically straight, right? So I'm gonna unlock this guy, and I'm gonna hide it. To hide an object is Command 3, or go Object, I think is here, Command 3. So if you do Command 3, it just hides the object, and then if you do Command Option 3, it brings it back. But we don't need it right now. So I'm gonna select the black object on top of the red object. If I go to my wireframe, I can see where they intersect. It's not gonna be like a perfect curvature right now, but for like for the workshop purposes, like it gives you an idea. And then select both. And then if I did this one, unite, it would make them one shape. But then what we want is minus the front. So what it's gonna do is the front is gonna cut it, and then it's gonna disappear. And that gives us that shape that we want. And another way of doing this, like I said before, is like if we go to the pen tool, which is the letter P or here, you could click and then do this and then do that. And we're gonna do that on the leaves, but it's a little more work, but it's doable as well. And the coolest thing about having this here is like, if you don't like it, the way it is, like if you want it more curvy or whatnot, you can select the direct selection tool and then start pulling your points. Like I can select this point in the middle and then like bring it in a little more. And then maybe like this one, we might want it a little more curvature. And then maybe like that one doesn't work. I can actually delete it. Right now you don't see it because it's in fill mode, but we can go back to stroke mode and then you can see where it is connected. But I think for this purpose, like I think this is fine. Like it's a little edgy right there, like a little sharp, but I mean, it's fine. So I'm gonna bring back the sketch, Command Option 3 or Object, Show All. And we're gonna draw this guy. So to draw that guy, again, we're gonna use a box. So I already have a little box in the bottom that I was using as a guide, so might as well use it. I'm just gonna bring it up. And the box is just to tell me like where the edge is, sort of, on my sketch. My sketch is not perfect, like I said. I'm gonna show my guides. So now I'm gonna turn this into a solid. I'm gonna make it black. Oh, something I forgot to mention. Logos are normally designed in black or one color, whichever color you picked, because logos have to work in one color. And then from there you can add color. And you're always gonna have to have a one color logo, whether it's black, and then maybe a PMS, a full color logo, RGB. If it's gonna be only for digital, it changes a little bit, but that's something to consider. So now we have that little block. I'm gonna make it black. Like, I need to be on this, make it black, maybe green, just so I can see it better. Since it's gonna be green. And then I'm gonna zoom in. To zoom in and zoom out, command minus, command plus, basically like most things. And then I'll go to the pen tool. And then I'll click somewhere kind of close to the corner of the box. With the pen tool, when you draw, like if I hold shift, it will draw like straight lines in an angle, like 45 degrees, no, 90 degrees. So it also allows you to draw, like the reason it's called a pen tool is like almost like if you were drawing with a pen. So now I know I want to go here. I click, hold, and then this little kind of like line comes out. And I can actually like pull it till I find the spot that I want, or I can let it go and that line stays on. And then I can just hold option. And then I can like adjust it. And then to continue drawing, you want to click on your last anchor point and then go to the next spot you want to go to, and then do that thing again. This is the part that like you can kind of like free draw it instead of using like perfect geo shapes or like modified geo shapes. The reason you have to click on the last dot is because on the last anchor point, is I'll show you what it does when you don't. Like right now, I think is if you don't, actually it's doing it pretty good here, but it tends to like curve itself, like it's trying to predict where you want to go. But like in this case, like I want to control like the whole line. So I click on the last, I hold option, click on that dot, because I want to tell it exactly where to go. And then I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. The reason I also put it in stroke here is because if it's not in stroke, if it's in fill, like it's gonna show, like it's gonna fill it and it's really hard to see it. It does that, look. And if I draw a line this way, starts doing that, and I don't know, like I cannot see exactly where else to go, unless you know like the shape really well, like you can do it. But to me, like it's easier to do it when I'm on stroke, when I can only see the stroke. So now the next point is about around here. This is almost like if you were like drawing with your pencils, or, and the next one can be here. This one doesn't have to be like as perfect. And here, option, click on the last anchor point, and here. Like my sketch is just like a guide. And here. The other has like here. I'll make this one a little thicker. Here. That one, wait, this one is not right. Group. Here. We're almost done. And then I try to look for the corner of the box. And I'll do this. Once I'm here, I just try to stay within the green box. And then I'll find the other anchor point. When I know it's going to close, if you can see at the bottom of the pen tool, there's like this little circle. The circle is telling me you're going to close the little loop that you were creating, regardless of the shape. So I close it, and then I click here. Make sure that thing is closed, because if you try to join it, like I'm going to do it right now with other objects, it's not going to do it right. Then I fill it. So I'm going to change the color just so you can see it. I'll make it orange. I'm going to use the pathfinder again. I apologize. My computer has some type of jet lag. There, cool. So we select the selection. We pick the selection tool again, or letter V, and select this object and that object. And then we go to Pathfinder. Come on. And then we're going to select this guy. The reason we do that is, and I'm going to make it black, because right now we don't care about the colors. But now I'm going to delete the sketch because I don't need it anymore. That was the last thing I needed as a guide for, I think. Oh, okay. I'm just going to hide it anyway. So now we see that the shape of the strawberry and the thing, like this is like a straight line, but now I have that curvature here, so I can use it to cut this guy. So what I do is I click on the strawberry or the top of the strawberry, and I'm gonna do either edit, copy, and then I would paste it in place, or we can just do Option and then hold Shift and then drag it up. And then I would change the color so you can see it. And then if you do Command Shift and then you use the brackets, if you use the bracket on the right, the closing bracket brings items to the front. If you use the bracket on the left, sends item to the back. So that's how I'm doing that. Or you can go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So you see it's like Shift, Command, Bracket, Bring Forward. So basically the two I'm using is bring forward, bring backward, because I only have 2 items and I know I have 2 items. So click on this one, bring to front. The reason I bring to front is because we're gonna cut and it's minus the front, right? So the front is gonna cut what's in the back and it's gonna give this bottom the shape. So I select this one and that one. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reuse what we've done. So we don't have to like be drawing from scratch. Because if I try to draw that line freehand, I might not get it to be exactly the same curvature, which you can if you can draw. Then click on that. And now we have basically the top and the bottom of the strawberry. So the strawberry can also be black now. And now, actually, I might need the sketch again. Now we're going to do these guys. For these guys, we're going to use little circles to make the little round part of. So here we can just go back to the ellipse tool and then I'll make a shape, circle shape.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Yes.
Let's just give a moment. Does anybody need to see anything again?
Yes.
I know the pen tool, it's always easy to watch somebody use it, but then sometimes just a little, we can get a little lost in the tool. So
Tricky.
so please, if anybody wants to see anything again, let us know. Otherwise, we'll keep trucking.
So now this is going to be the same concept as we did before. I have it green right now, but I'm going to make it the color that it might be. And then I select the circle, command, right bracket, it's gonna bring it to the front. You cannot see it because it's that color, but I'll change the color so you can see it. And basically here, change that to stroke. Here, I'm gonna have to have a circle and then two smaller circles and then two smaller circles that are like a little lower. So they create that kind of like curvature. So here, I'm just gonna hold Option, click and drag and make another circle. And while I'm there, I select it with the selection tool, Command, Option, Shift. Then I'm gonna reduce the size a little bit. And then I'm gonna bring it down. And then I'm gonna run here. Yeah, that's fine. Then I'm gonna duplicate this one, hold Shift so it stays in the same axis. If I go to my wireframes, so I move it a little bit, and then I'm gonna do that one more time. And I might have to adjust this more than likely. So I'll make this one, Command, Option, Shift. And I'll reduce the size. And then I hold Shift and then bring it down on the X-axis a little bit. And then I bring it closer to it. I'm gonna do that. So I'm a little off on the edges, and that's fine. Like, we'll fix that. Let me see. So now I'm gonna group them. Like, I click on the first one with the selection tool, hold shift, click, hold shift, and click. And then I'm gonna go Object, Group, or Command G. Command G selects them, and then I'm gonna start holding shift, trying to bring them closer to the edge. That's why when I made these corners rounded, I was like, we don't have to worry about too much because we were gonna use this shape to create that. Bring them up a little bit. Then I'm gonna go into that wireframe view because it allows me to see the edge better. So I can see when they touch. And then on this side. Okay. So now what I can do, just to test it out, I can change the color of this stroke to fill and then change it to the same color as the circles. And that looks close to what I want. 1 second, I need to check something real quick. Yeah, no. I might have to bring them up a bit. Which means I'm gonna have to adjust the size. I don't know if you guys saw what I saw, but look, if I change the color back to tan on this one, you see how I have that little triangle? So if I cut it, I'm gonna have those little shapes there. So now I have to adjust it. So that gets covered, but now it comes off here. But now all we need to do is adjust the size. Or wait, another thing we can do, I know what we can do. Because he doesn't need that much of an adjustment. It's very little. I hope this is not very confusing, but what we need to do is get rid of those two triangles before we join them. Because what's going to happen is this and this are going to become one. But I don't want to have those two flat edges. So I'm going to hide. I'm going to send this guy to the back right now, which is Command left bracket. And then I'm going to make a little tiny box. There's a million ways to do this. You could pull the points and all that, but it can also affect your angles. So this is like a super easy way. So you select that guy. I'm just gonna cut a piece of this orange. Then select that box, select this box, go back to Pathfinder, and then minus the top. So now when I have this and that in the same color, it'll look more like we should without those. Was that confusing? Or You can pull the points down, but since we have an angle on the edges, it's going to change those angles too. So it's easier for me at this point just to cut it to get that right angle. So now that we have those, since there are two actually objects, I'm just going to select all the circles which are grouped, hold shift, click on this guy, go back to Pathfinder, and then make him one object. And then we leave it like that for right now. And now, as a designer, when you do stuff like this, that's gonna have curvatures and all that. Like sometimes you have to calculate and make sure like stuff is super like perfect when it comes to that. For today's purposes, like it's okay if you're a little off. It comes with practice. We're just gonna have to make circles again to cut now the top to create that gap that will give us that curvature. Here I cannot use to cut this because then they're going to be exactly the same gap. So if I make it bigger, what's going to happen is like they're not gonna align. They're going to be like bigger in one end than the other. So here I have to use another circle. I'll make first a perfect circle, holding shift. I'll go to swatches. I'll make this one green and I'll make it a stroke so I can see it. And then I'll start with the center, because I know it's in the middle, and I'll make it really close to that one. Bring up, see if it's the same size, it's not gonna work. So I hold Command Option Shift. I start going up in size. And I'm eyeballing it. That's sort of kind of close. And I bring it down a little bit. So now I do the same thing I did with the other ones. I click on, this one's already selected, so I just hold Option and then drag it. And then I come to the center of this one. This one's gonna have to be a little smaller and lower. So I hold Command Option Shift. Then I start making it a little smaller. And then this one, I'm gonna have to adjust the side, the center point. Like I go one arrow to the right, one down. What do you guys think? I think that's kind of close. Then I'm just gonna duplicate it because that one and this one are basically the same. And then I have to do it one more time. Go to the center. Make it a little smaller. And that's kind of close. Now I'm gonna hold Option, click and drag, and then put it here. Before I even cut it, I can already see that this object, if I cut it, now we don't need that sketch. So now if I use this object to cut this object, I'm gonna have these edges right here. So what I can do before I do that, like I can do select the direct selection tool, click on it, and then hold Shift, and then just bring it closer to that. I might have to bring it up a little bit actually first. Wait, before we do that, let me select them all. Click, Shift, click on the next one, click on the next, click on the wrong item. Again, click on the wrong item. Okay, so now I'm gonna group them. I'm gonna make them a little bigger. Somehow, I'm gonna bring it up so I can get closer. You can always adjust it. So now these three guys, I'm gonna make them. This one's not selected. So I'm gonna select all five, group them. I'm gonna unite them here. And the same thing that happened on the orange one, I'm having that. So I'm gonna use the top to cut the bottom. And what I can do here is adjust this corner a little bit, either by selecting this and then changing this angle. What would be the easiest way to do this? Give me 1 sec. Okay, so the cool thing is when I click on it, I have a point here, a point here, and a point here. So what I can do is I'm going to delete, I'm going to go to stroke so you can see it. I'm going to delete this point with the selection tool. I just delete this point. I'm just going to delete this point here. And you're going to see that. And then I'm going to click on this one. Just click delete and it deletes it. And then we're going to go back to the pen tool, which is the letter P or this tool here. Click on it. And here you're going to have to do kind of like what we did with the leaves. So now we go move to the other side. P, click on the last anchor point from here. And then you just kind of have to. So that way we have with a pointy angle, so it feels more like it sits on it. So now that we have that, we go back to black, we go back to black. I'm sorry, that's red. We go back to black. And now we have basically our shape. The only thing we're missing are the little lines on the cupcake, which we can freehand. We also need to only draw 2 because once we draw these two will just duplicate them. And then we need to do the little seeds of the strawberry. For the bars, it can be done many different ways. If you're, I would freehand them, but we can also make like a rectangle, a really long rectangle. If you click here and then if you have the selection tool picked, and if you go to the corners, you see those little arrows, like those will allow me to change the angle, rotate them. So you could do them that way. And then for that, like you just want to make sure you change the color so you can see it. If you don't like that is flat here, we can do what we did with the other ones. You can make the edges rounded, or you can use like the direct selection tool and bring these guys closer together, which is another way of doing it. So if, for example, we're okay with that one, we can click on it with the selection tool, hold option, drag, and it's going to make a second one. This one should be a little longer and the angle different. So I let the little curvy arrows pop out, change the angle a little bit. And then if I select the direct selection tool, come here, select the 2 dots in the bottom because I want them. And this is why I say select the 2 dots in the bottom. I'll zoom in so you can see. If I only select one, it's just going to pull that one. Oh, I pull the stuff in the back. If I only click on one, it's just going to pull one. So in this case, I want both to come together to the party. So that's sort of kind of like one way. You can still also make those corners rounded if you prefer. Like that's totally up to you. And I select these 2 guys. So I'll do it with copy so you can see it this time with copy. You would say copy, and then you would say paste in place, which is Command Option D. And that's going to give me 2 more. So what I do is I just click, hold shift so they stay on the same x-axis, and I go to object, transform, reflect. You can reflect vertically or horizontally. In this case, we want vertically because it's just gonna, no, horizontally, not vertically. Yeah, this way. And then click on the selection tool. Just bring them here. And again, I'm gonna change the color so you can see it so you don't think it's white. A lot of people do this kind of stuff. And then they send their logo out for like printing purposes or whatnot. And this is what happens. If the background is red, you're gonna see the white boxes, and we don't want the white boxes. So in this case, that's why I said I'm gonna change the color. So what we need to do is select the 4 items. And select, I think it will do it if I don't make it one. And then we're gonna do minus the top. And basically that gives us the little creases of the cupcake. Any questions so far? We're basically done with the icon. The circle part is really easy. We're gonna do like a step and repeat kind of process, and we're gonna use, again, I try to come up with a logo where we could only use like mostly shapes, and then like just do a little bit of freehand on the leaves, so it wouldn't be as tedious or complex. So no questions, we're good. So again, if I make an ellipse and I hold shift, it's gonna make a perfect circle, which is fine. We can start with a perfect circle. I'm gonna put it here, but I don't want it to look like an angry strawberry. So I'm gonna make it more like an oval, and I'm gonna make it super tiny. And then, you know how I've been doing this thing where I click on an object, I hold Option, and then I just hold shift, and then I move it. So that basically duplicates it, which I think is really cool. But if after that, I wanted to keep doing the same object at the same distance in the same pattern, all I need to do is Command D, and it's gonna repeat the last action I did. And that's what anything you do, like whatever last action you do, if you do Command D, it'll keep doing that. To do it manually, I think you do this. And then I think you go to object somewhere in here. It's on transform. Maybe that one. No, maybe not. I don't
It
know.
was
Where
at the top. It was, you were on it. Object, transform, and transform again.
how do you see it? That one.
Yeah.
Oh, the only thing that sucks about that one is you would have to click on it every time. So it's easier just to do Command D and then Command D, Command D. And once you have all the little seeds, I would select them all. And then I would hold shift. And then drag them and put them offset. Then I would drag them again and put them offset. You can put as many as you want. Oh, I did that one way. Just selecting them all again. There's a little bit of lag in my computer. I apologize about that. But I would kind of like do it like that. I don't really need this one, so I just delete it. And I would make them all white. Also, what you can do if you can select them with the selection tool, you can just drag around it. It selects everything. So it's going to select the back, and then you just hold shift and click on that, and then unselects that. And then I can just change those to them. Yeah, that's the lag I'm talking about. It just doesn't do it right away. So basically we have our strawberry with the cupcake sort of thing. Now we're gonna go to, you can type on your keyboard the letter T, or just come here and then you'll get the text tool. And now we're gonna type. Oh, my bad. Computer's not happy. I will click on it because it's already there. Command A, I select it all. And I'm just gonna type berry. I'm gonna place it here. And then I'm gonna click on it and drag it because I want them to be 2 separate items, like because I want to have full control of it. And I'm gonna select this one. Ah, come on. There. And for example, like this is the kerning I was talking about when you type something, and if it's for a paper, it doesn't really matter. But when you're doing type, see the space here and the space here between the C and the U is not the same space between those two. When you're designing, you'd have to pay a lot of attention about this space, which is the kerning. You have to adjust it because if not, your logo is going to look weird. And it is more noticeable when you like do type treatments and all that kind of stuff. Super important, like typography is really important. Like typography is something we could talk about for 10 hours straight. And I mean, we would not even scratch the surface of it. But in this case, we're like, just so you have that concept of, so right now I'm just gonna use the selection tool whenever the beach ball of death goes away. And then I'm gonna go to character and we're gonna find that font hunters. They're normally in alphabetical order, but at the top you see the most used. So since I just used it, because I created this not long ago, like it's there. There has to be a proportion between the icon and the typography. So that's something very important. So right now I'm just gonna select them both. And then I'm just gonna hold shift and then I'm gonna increase the size. Holding shift is really important so it doesn't like skew or distort the letters. I just had to turn my fan on. I don't know if my computer's getting warm, but it's kind of acting weird. If there's a lot of noise in the background, please let me know and I can turn it off. We're basically done. I'm gonna turn my guides back on. Cool. I'm gonna move this guy. And something that I really like about those two types is that I can design them in a way where I can make the berry sit inside between the C and the K. So I'm gonna make the bottom a little bit larger. Being cohesive with the letters and where they sit and how they're read is super important. Sometimes oh, see, I didn't hold shift, right? I mean, so right now, like cupcake is not exactly center, but it's center enough. Now I can select this too. And like I said before, the colors, I don't worry. Like I know that what the colors are going to be like. I want to make this a little bit. Select both. And then so they're proportionate with the object. The berry needs to come out a little here, just so the weight of the typography is almost as strong as the weight of the actual icon. Let's get in there. Cool. So now I select and cool. So now we're done. So now we know this guy is going to be in green. We go to swatches, select the green color. Oh. Make sure it's selected. Click on this guy. We know that's red. This is going to be that tannish color. And these guys are grouped right now and select them. You can click on them like objects. This one is kind of weird. Like it has like a lot of space on the top. So make sure you're selecting the right one. You can also like do command right bracket, so Barry comes to the front. So when you click on it, is the first one you select. Then we want Barry to be red because of the name and the color go together, like right, like you associate that. And even though you don't associate cupcake with green, it goes with the theme of the logo, and that's basically your logo. Something that you can do too. Remember how I told you before that you can click on this guy and change the size of your canvas. You can also click on it, hold option, drag it to the side, and it'll duplicate everything, the canvas and all that. You can come up with other layouts for the logo that could work. For example, something I experimented with, I group this guy, move it to the side, and then, oh no, sorry. Actually, yeah, I put it in one word. But for that one, I think I changed the letters very. Cupcake. Horrible typing. And I'll make this green. Then we just have to proportion and make it a little bigger. That could be another option. If we wanted something, because sometimes logos have to be used horizontally, vertically. So this guy is already grouped, I think. So we can put it sideways, and then we can very. I'm going to duplicate that and paste it. Oh, paste it because I copy it. I think they should kind of like align in an angle because of the Y and this shape right here, this angle, that's super important to remember. And then, oh shift, because if not, it's gonna do that. And of course, I'm doing this super fast. Like you need to be really mindful of the area where like the letters would sit, like they kind of have to stay within certain proportion of it. So those are options that you could do. But I mean, there's also like businesses that only have one logo option and they'll go with that. Like they don't care about that part. Like if this is what they want, they'll stick with that, and that's all they will do. So if you were going to, so this is basically it. We can do how to save it. If you're gonna use it for print and all that, all I recommend doing, this would be fine as is. You don't have any extra colors here. I would select the font and I would go to type and I would say, here, create outlines. Basically what that does, it creates your typography into an object, or is Command Shift O. So now I cannot type that anymore. So whomever you send it to, like the print shop or whatever, if they open it, it's not going to be asking them for the font. You can always send the font, but there's issues that can happen. I work in the print industry forever, and fonts always give you a lot of problems. So if this is it, you can save this as an Illustrator file, and it can be used in InDesign. It can be used in anything, like because Adobe has done a really great job of now you can use native files. Like in Illustrator, you can place it in InDesign. Before you used to have to save it as an EPS, blah, blah, blah. If you're going to use this little guy for web, you would go File, Export, save for web. And then here, if I save this as a JPEG, it's going to put a white background. So this white background will show. But like, let's say you want it for the web. Also, you would adjust your canvas size. Right now I didn't, but if I save it like this, save, let me adjust the canvas so it's not that big. So like, let's say this is the last one and we're gonna use it for the web. You don't want like a lot of excess. You just drag the corners like you do with the shapes. Click OK. I don't do what I just did because I would trim the top of it. And then you would go here, export, say for web legacy. And now see with JPEG, you'll see the white. You select PNG, which allow you to make it transparent. You place it on a website on top of color, it'll be fine. And all you need to do is save. And it's going to be a super tiny file, like 12K. So this is going to be like super web friendly. Then you can save it as whatever name you want, .png. Some people put for web, whatever. And that's basically it. You guys have any questions?